Historically, the post-secondary degree and the GPA and the major were used as signals to predict if someone had the right skills and was the right hire. That world has changed.
It's very hard for the student to give up paid work at a retail or a hospitality outlet for a work experience, an unpaid one. In Australia, we're undergoing a reform process of one of these really large, once-in-a-generation ones in the higher education sector.
Building confidence is something that's very, very top of mind. After individuals complete micro-internships, we ask them to provide feedback using the NACE core competencies on how the project impacted them.
Welcome to another episode of Relearning Work, where we dive into the future of learning and work. In each episode, we bring you conversations with leaders from industry and education to challenge assumptions, propose ideas, and share learnings as we all navigate this world that is being reshaped by agentic AI. Now, whether you're an educator, a student, or a business executive looking to stay ahead in this rapidly changing landscape, there's something here for you. I'm your host, David Yip. My guest today is Jeffrey Moss, a venture capitalist turned education entrepreneur, solving what he calls the broken system of college recruiting. Celebrating 10 years since founding Parker Dewey, which is revolutionizing how students and employers connect through short-term paid projects that let companies and candidates test each other out before making bigger commitments. The results speak for themselves. US college graduates' employment rate is typically 64%, but students using Jeff's Micro-Internships model achieve an amazing 96% success rate. This innovation earned him the 2019 Chicago Innovation Award and has been adopted widely by thousands of companies, from startups to Fortune 500 companies and almost 6,000 post-secondary institutions across the US. Jeff's here to share how he's disrupting traditional hiring and creating more equitable pathways to meaningful careers. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Thanks so much, David. Excited to be here.
Oh, that is a scale that you have achieved and impact. And I'd like to just start off with how you got here. You were, a Wall Street investor, venture capital, but now you're running an edtech or an education business. How come the switch?
Yeah, I'm not sure I really think about it just as education. I mean, we think about it as a workforce business, because one of the things I get excited about is how we are creating sort of valuable opportunities, obviously for learners, but also for employers, for companies looking to more effectively recruit and hire early career professionals, whether they're coming from traditional colleges or universities or community colleges or workforce programs or boot camps, but also providing valuable data to those post-secondary programs to most effectively support and mentor and coach individual learners and identify opportunities for improvement, et cetera. So yes, we certainly are an educational technology organization. We named our organization after Francis Parker and John Dewey because we're believers in experiential learning, but we wanted to create a model that truly creates that win-win-win for all three of those stakeholder groups. To your question, I spent most of my career, to your point, as an investor, primarily in education and technology in a lot of places of where those two areas intersect. And one of the challenges I saw was how broken that college to career was for organizations that were recruiting college students for summer internships or full-time roles. It was really difficult to engage individuals unless they were already aware of that company or already planning to apply. It was really difficult to assess the skills of individuals. We all had people that sort of maybe we passed on because they didn't have the right GPA or major or went to the right school, or maybe they interviewed really well and we did decide to hire them, but realized the first week it may not be the right fit. So that was a problem we were seeing from employers. And as an investor in the space, we saw individuals coming out of great programs who weren't able to get their foot in the door because they didn't have the right academic pedigree. We saw amazing colleges and universities and boot camps and other programs doing a tremendous job training and supporting learners, but we're still struggling. And what we ultimately recognized was the process itself was broken. We're essentially asking employers and asking these career launchers to quote unquote get engaged through a summer internship or an apprenticeship or a co-op, or get married through a full-time role without ever going on a date. So about 10 years ago, we recognized with the emergence of freelance platforms like Upwork or Fiverr that companies were more open to giving short-term professional projects to individuals outside of the four walls, that technology had caught up and sort of that light bulb moment went off. Can we use this acceptance, sort of a project-based work, to create that dating opportunity, to allow employers and candidates to have these job dates and to create massive amounts of data that supports the decision making of employers, that helps sort of post-secondary and other educational programs and ultimately leads to better outcomes. So as an investor, when we had this idea, the first thing I tried to do is find companies doing it, partially so I could invest, but partially so I could be a customer of it. We had this need. When I saw no one was doing it, I spent the next 6 to 9 months talking with employers, talking with students, talking with post-secondary programs to understand if there was something viable there, and ultimately decide to launch it.
I guess the approach that you took and also the insights that you saw, because one of the things I always explore with my guests is mindsets and assumptions. And you just spoke about there's a lot of assumptions that existing practices are based on, that, if you come from a certain university with a certain degree, then you have certain skills or certain expectations. But that's partly why the system is broken now, because it operates on these assumptions, which once upon a time may have been true, but now it's no longer the case. And we need to think about things in a different way. We need to understand our mindsets and understand these assumptions.
Would completely agree. I mean, look, historically, the post-secondary degree and the GPA and the major were used as signals to predict if someone had the right skills and was the right hire. That world has changed. In addition, we're seeing an increasing focus on core skills or durable skills or human skills, whatever we want to call them, the importance of things like communication, problem solving, adaptability, coachability, etc. And those are continuing to become more and more important, but also difficult to assess. So those assumptions about, is the right hire someone who could do a DCF in Excel or someone who could memorize rote facts? Are they the right entry level hire? That assumption's being tested, and more of a focus on, we need someone who has the ability to learn really quickly, given the rapid change of technology. We need someone who can problem solve or has empathy, as opposed to just ability to process.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you touched on something there as well. Even the education institutions have particular assumptions about the employers of what they should be doing or how they should participate in the training of the student as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a variety, and there's a big debate going on in the US, and not sure if the same debate's going on in Australia around, one, the question about the value of post-secondary education overall, and two, within the post-secondary education system, concerns about vocationalizing it. Should we be getting rid of the humanities or liberal arts education? It's kind of interesting to watch from afar, but I think it's missing the point. The key is that, again, back to the earlier point, with the rapid change of technology, and in general, it's those core skills, those human skills that are honed through whatever type of program, be it a liberal arts one or an appropriate boot camp, that teach people how to think and problem solve and adapt quickly. And those are the skills we should be developing irrespective of where one gets those skills.
Mm-mm. And I think in the current system as well, I think there is a tendency to expect the students to pick winners too early, right? So you got to decide when you're 18, 19, oh, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be an engineer, I'll be an accountant. And you spend 2-3 years, our degrees are 3 years over here. I think in the US are 4 years. That's quite a lot of time in a chosen career path. And you're investing considerable, not just time, but money. These degrees are getting so expensive now. In the US, it's quite famously known around the world, $200,000 for a degree. In Australia, it's getting up to that. Not quite there yet, but we have $50,000 arts degrees now. So it's a big ask for students, for the education system to expect students to know what they want and invest a lot of time in it.
And And
Yeah.
it's only getting worse. I mean, it's only getting worse. We see more and more in financial services in the US. We're seeing more and more of the investment banks recruiting freshmen and sophomores, first and second year students for summer internships that they're not going to begin until their third year. And these students are being asked to prepare in their first or second year and pick a career path with very limited data. Our whole approach is that's not in the best interest of either the learner or the employer. That how
Mm,
can we
mm.
encourage more career exploration earlier in the process? In fact, we talk a lot about apprenticeships, which are getting a lot of discussion here in the US.
Yeah.
And we think apprenticeships are phenomenal, but the current model being offered still requires that high stakes commitment by
Yeah.
both the learner and the employer. An individual who wants to become an apprentice is essentially committing to a 6 month to 2 year training program.
Yeah.
That is a
Yeah.
high stakes decision with very little data that's not in the best interest of
Yeah.
anyone. Can we
Yeah.
provide more opportunities for this exploration earlier so the employer and the individual can make better decisions about what educational pathway they want to pursue and ultimately what full time role?
Yeah. Yeah. So what you're saying is it's not that either we choose one or the other. It's both. And apprenticeships are good. Micro internships are really important as well.
Thank you.
And you
Yes.
have to coexist. You have to offer them both. All right. So you give students the opportunity to experiment, to discover, to explore different things, and then choose an area of specialty where they want to invest 6, 12, 24 months to develop further. It
Exactly.
sounds
Exactly. It's
almost
not.
common sense.
It goes back to again the metaphor that was less creepy when a college student said it versus a 50-year-old married guy. We need an opportunity to date. We need an
Yeah.
opportunity to date. And when I pushed back, I said, what about mentoring? What about
Yeah.
info sessions and career fairs? Her response is that's swiping right or left on whatever dating app. So I want to go on a date. If I have the
Yeah.
opportunity, I think I'll want to go work for Google. That's my
Yeah.
dream job. I want to be in Silicon Valley doing blank. I have a single summer internship, maybe two,
Yeah.
but there's this kind of interesting company that maybe I never heard of or was in different space. I'm not ready to jump in and risk that Google summer internship to take an internship with a less well-known company.
Yeah.
But if I could just go on a date with them, if I could
Yeah.
do a single 10, 20, 30-hour project, yeah, I'm open to it. And I may realize that's actually a better fit. I may realize a mid-sized company is more interesting to me than a massive one. Or gosh,
Yeah.
I didn't think about doing data analytics with a manufacturing firm, but I
Yeah.
really like this project. Or again, I did the project and I realized it's not the right fit. Better to figure that out early. Better to
Yeah.
figure that out. And for the employer, think about how much they're spending on the recruiting. The NACE average is north of $6,000 for every entry level hire.
Yeah.
Then I bring someone in for a summer internship, 10 weeks with the salary and training and everything else to realize it's not the right fit. Either the company
Yeah.
realizes it or the learner. Again, that's a huge lost opportunity. And
Yeah.
we're still going to have people who go through summer internships where it's not the right fit. But if you could do that sort of quick test drive, that audition beforehand, it's
Yeah.
going to increase the likelihood of bringing in the right summer interns and ultimately the right hires. And we have 10 years of data showing it 40
Yeah.
to 80% lower cost per hire for companies. It's pretty incredible.
And, people costs are one of the largest costs in the company, right? And especially now in the environment where companies are looking at the bottom line really closely, it's something that is top of mind for a lot of executives.
Yeah, I mean, we're finding there's a massive increase in the focus on data by those involved in early career recruiting in two ways. One, it's data to improve decision making. Again, back to your earlier comment about challenging assumptions and changing mindset, we're hearing more and more of those early career recruiting teams at organizations saying, I want to use data to determine, are we spending time with the right schools? I want to use data to determine, is our hiring process effective? I want to use data to sort of predict for next year, plan for next year, and make better decisions. But the second area, which is really, really important, it goes to what you said. It's data to highlight to others in the organization the value of what they're doing and the ROI of what they're doing. It's no longer about vanity metrics. It's no longer about how many applicants I brought in or what my conversion. It's metrics that the C-suite cares about. What's our retention of our new hires? Are we bringing in the best talent? Are they performing well when they're coming in? How efficient is our process? Not just from a pure cost, but also time. And these are the things that we're spending a lot of time working with sort of those campus recruiting or early career professional teams or early career program teams on, is arming them with the data to showcase to the senior executives at the company the efficacy of what they're doing and the alignment with corporate goals, especially as budgets come under pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, you guys have been operating now for a decade. And so before COVID, you're right through that period and now into this new era. And the numbers are super impressive. I think, close to 6,000 institutions, post-secondary institutions now, and companies from the largest Fortune 500s to startups and innovative organizations, everything in between. What have you seen in terms of the impact and where do you see it heading?
Yeah, I mean, our heads down and we're focused on continued execution. We are focused in one spot, which is this early career professional. We don't care, to your point, whether you come from a community college or an Ivy League or a master's program or a boot camp or a micro credential or anything else. We just want to help individuals launch their careers. In the same way, organizations of all sizes, we want to help them recruit and hire more effectively. And fortunately, we have the data to show it works. As I alluded to before, cost per hire, 60, 70, 80% lower than their average. When individuals are hired for full-time roles following micro-internships, north of 98% retention rate. So not only are they getting hired more cost and time effectively, less than 2% of them leave within the first year, compared to 55% of all recent college grads in the first year. We're showing an ability to be more effective with the time. But I think one of the keys of what we've done, and this is really, really important, is it's easy.
Yeah.
It's easy.
Yeah.
That for those organizations, that's why it's adopted from startups to Fortune 100. It's easy. That as an early career recruiting professional, someone focused on sort of bringing in the top new talent, this plugs right into what they do. It's not a heavy lift. It doesn't require more budget. It complements existing programs. For organizations looking to start up early career programs, it's easy. It doesn't require a 10-year commitment and a six-figure check. It doesn't require traveling all over the country, being at every career fair. For the universities or colleges, it's easy. It plugs right into what they're doing. It doesn't require sort of integration within the classroom. It reinforces what they're trying to do. Are we trying to get more students to engage with our career services department? This works. Are we trying to get more data to understand David's skills and to better counsel and coach him? This works. Are we hearing from employers? They're interested in engaging with more of our first and second year students. Here's how to do it. It plugs right in without creating friction.
Yeah, I think it's amazing what you've achieved over in the US. And I'm certainly looking at bringing the micro-internship model in a big way to Australia. But as we're talking to, and this goes back to assumptions and mindsets, because there's a very ingrained assumption as to what an intern is and what an internship is and what programs are. And a lot of times when I talk to people, the first reaction is, internship programs, they're really expensive, they're really structured. And what can interns do anyway? Oh, these really short-term programs, by the time I train them and onboard them, it's weeks and weeks of work. I'm just too busy. But how would you change people's mindset around that? And what's the reality of micro-internships?
It's a good question because, again, when we coined the term almost a decade ago, micro-internship, it's sort of a double-edged sword. Because for some people, it's really quickly to get. It's short, it's bite-sized, it's sort of that college student experience. But the flip side is, I think some employers, at least historically, said, ooh, gosh, it sounds heavy, to your point. Am I going to have to train? Am I going to have to onboard? I'm not sure the view is worth the climb. It's or to your other point, we already have an internship program. We don't need a micro internship program. I think what we've been able to do over the years is really help employers understand, no, it's not a replacement. Here's how it plugs in. It doesn't require that huge commitment. But one of the other things we do, and again, this is the benefit of having been at it for a while, is we make it easy for employers. Employers will come to us and say, we have an entry level role that we're trying to fill in business development.
Mm,
They don't
mm,
have to do anything beyond that. They don't have to
mm.
think about what a project is. They don't have to think about coaching or mentoring or program design. We've been doing this so long. We said, here's a perfect micro internship that doesn't require a lift from you or your hiring manager, that will let you really, really quickly engage the candidates that you're most interested in engaging. And what I mean by that is, maybe you have geographic goals. Maybe you're focused on first and second year students as an early ID or early access program, or maybe you need individuals about to graduate or about to complete a program. We just need to understand your goals and what sort of that spec is for that full-time role or that summer intern, and we handle everything. We know what the projects are that best help engage those candidates, but also assess the skills. The skills may include some technical skills. Again, can they do a discounted cash flow in Excel? Can they code in Python? But the vast majority of times, the organizations are more interested in assessing those core skills. And our process does that in an integrated way, and it embeds it within the process. Does David's communication, or are David's communication skills up to snuff? Does he have attention to detail? Can he problem solve? It's all built right in. So I, as an employer, can quickly see, here's the 500 candidates who are interested in the project. Now they're a pool and a feeder for me. Here's the 10 who did the project. I can quickly tease out, again, which ones are the ones we want to spend time on, which ones have demonstrated those core skills we're looking for, which ones haven't, and use it to determine, okay, who do we want to do that deep dive with? Who do we want to interview? Or maybe we interview all of them, but we have data points to focus on in the interview. Because David did the project, but his attention to detail was subpar. Let's focus on that in the interview, or let's look for other data points to either confirm or deny. That's an effective sort of analysis of his skill.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing, amazing. And to really approach this in a very specific data-driven way, I think that's the game changer here. Bit of trial and error, isn't it? It's a numbers game. You hire a lot of people and hopefully a few survive and progress down the pathways.
I think it depends on the organization. Some are that. Some, again, are proud of sort of their conversion rate. Yeah, it's awesome. We think some of it ties into the assessment, but it's also data to make your process more effective and efficient. So again, we may have an incredible interview process that perfectly teases out skills so we're able to determine who we want to offer an internship and a full-time role to. But one of the questions I would ask is, how many interviews do you need to do? Are you spending 20 hours interviewing candidates to each candidate to tease those skills out? And is there a way to make your process more efficient and effective? But again, it's using data, to your point.
Yeah. Yeah. I think with the data platform as well, the sources of data now, it feeds into this whole AI world, right? AI lives on data and it requires it to really, fine tune and be more specific, especially with agentic as well. But at the same time, though, it's a double-edged sword because companies with AI will go, well, I've got AI now, so I don't need entry level, or I got it, these intelligent AI systems. They can do all these processing work for me quite cost effectively and quickly as well. How does that actually help, or does it actually make micro-internship even more useful, actually?
It definitely doesn't hurt. And I know, again, there's a lot of debate about there's a great quote from someone at LinkedIn talking about, there's an article about the broken bottom rung of the ladder and how entry level roles are going away, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think I agree with that. I think there's certainly some roles that are going to disappear. Are they entry level, or are they roles that, I guess I hadn't thought about in these terms, maybe entry level, but there's not really a pathway, that are going to go away? So for instance, again, certain roles may be around a call center. Are we really going to need call center operators? Are we going to need first level IT support? Are some of those roles may go away without a doubt, but I'm not sure I'd call them entry level because, again, is there that long-term career pathway? ingrained, longer conversation. And again, nothing against call center operators or otherwise. It's just sort of some of the thinking that we have from the conversations we've had with companies. I think the vast majority of roles are actually going to evolve. So I think about my role as an investment banker. When I started as an investment banker, I had Microsoft Excel or Lotus 123. My boss, who had been in the space for 20 years beforehand, talked about the fact he used a calculator. Excel did not mean there were fewer investment banking analysts. It meant the job evolved. It was less time data entering into an HP12C and more time doing the analysis of the model. The role continues to evolve. Now there's even less time doing the financial modeling and more, again, the deep dive problem solving. Still just as many bankers, but again, the role evolved. I think that's a big part of sort of where we're going to see AI play. The second part of it ties to the importance of core skills. Again, you talk about companies where they're actively looking for individuals who can code in whatever language or can pull and process data. Yeah, the ability to again, code in a language or pull data, you can use AI for that. And what it means is we need more people who can problem solve and think and know the right questions to ask and use it, which is why, again, we're so focused on this. So back to, again, employers need more ability to assess those core skills and less ability to assess, can David use Python?
Yeah. And also, as well, one thing that I continually be amazed, and I work with a lot of students from all sorts of different types of universities and colleges. One thing that I am always impressed with is the level of skill that they have, that a lot of times they don't even know they have these skills. They don't even fully appreciate how valuable the skills that they already have are. But when you give them a problem or put them in a situation, they'll solve it, they'll do it, right? And I think part of the thing is a lot of skills they have, they think of it as just a given, right? Whereas a lot of us in the workplace think it's something special. You know, social media analysts, right? Wow, that's a particular skill. You ask a Gen Z, I want to hire a social media specialist. They'll feel actually a bit afraid of that job title, not realizing they have those skills in buckets.
Yeah, I mean, I actually would take it even a bit further because, again, you talk about social media analysts. I actually, again, sorry to be the dead horse, I go back to the core skills. I think one of the biggest opportunities for post-secondary institutions is helping the learners appreciate, understand, and more effectively communicate those core skills, especially in terms that employers understand. So, for instance, we talk about the proverbial philosophy major. No company has the job title philosopher, not even Google has it. But the philosophy major knows how to take massive amounts of data, analyze it, craft an argument, convince someone, etc. How do we help that philosophy major understand that that skill is incredibly valuable in a
Mm,
sales role or a strategy role or a finance role? To a company big and small, that to a company in tech or CPG or healthcare. We need more of those opportunities to sort of help those learners understand the crosswalks
mm-hmm,
between those skills that may not sound like job titles, like
mm-hmm,
social media analyst, but they're just as important, if not
mm,
more so, in the same
yeah,
way, helping employers more effectively evaluate for those skills and
yeah,
understand them. And we've
yeah,
talked in the past about skills based hiring or skills first hiring, which is very, very top of mind. In the US, that conversation is very much tied to do you get a degree or not? Or it's tied to companies saying we're skills first hiring, we're removing the degree requirement from job specs. It's missing the point. Skills first hiring means understanding that entry level role needs strong communication skills or needs strong adaptability. Let's make sure that our hiring process is effectively assessing adaptability versus did Jeff know ABC coding language?
yeah, yeah. And what better way to demonstrate adaptability by having someone having done a lot of different gigs, a lot of different micro intern opportunities. If they've done 5, 10, 15 of these things during their course, there is a level of curiosity, being adaptable to situations, not to mention you're picking up a lot of experiences along the way.
I would agree. And look, ultimately trying to do is help employers recruit and hire early career professionals the same way they do experienced professionals. That if I am hiring someone to lead a marketing team, we're not talking about where he or she went to college or major GPA. They're sharing what their experiences were, how they took various problems and solved them using their knowledge.
Mm,
For those who are early in their career, all they really have is college and maybe an internship or two. So
mm,
again, we revert back to academic pedigree as a signal. However, to your point, when students do these micro internships, especially if they do multiple ones, now
mm,
I as an employer have this data, have this artifact upon which I can interview David to assess his skills. David, I saw you did a micro internship for a CPG where you were doing a market size analysis. It's right there on your resume or LinkedIn. Tell me
mm,
about it. How did
mm,
you decide what companies to analyze? What information was most important? Why do you think your boss wanted that done on
mm,
that
mm,
project? And
mm,
again, there's a great student I was just talking with earlier today, a student who did several micro internships a few years ago. She's now at Accenture here in the US. And she talked about when she was applying for the role, all they wanted to talk about were the 10 or 5 or whatever number of micro internships she did. Not only were they using it to assess her skills and understand the way she thought, but they also used it to have pretty good knowledge that Accenture was the right fit because she did a project for a startup and realized, ooh, maybe I don't want to work at a startup. And she did a project for a CPG company or a project for a large, and she's able to do these things, especially if you start early in your academic or post-secondary career. You start as it's almost a big funnel as a learner where you're using it to explore. And then as you're getting more and more of this data, narrowing down. And that way, when you take your summer internship, you already have data to know it's probably the right fit. And you're able to, again, use that data to make better decisions, which is why we see that less than 2% first year attrition.
yeah. Yeah, that's a really powerful bottom line outcome that executives want to see, that they're hiring very quickly, hiring a lot of people, that these people actually stay and that they don't just come in the front door and leave the back door.
Yeah, we got one of the companies I was talking to probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. She called me and was talking about how she got called into the CHRO's office for a meeting and got nervous. Apparently, we've been working with them for a while. We do these things for companies called impact reports, where what we're essentially doing is taking all of the data from their micro internship programs and putting it together with sort of the so what, if you will. What does this all mean? And they can access all this stuff on demand, but we're trying to provide more of the insights that go across from this massive amount of data we have, not just on the organization, but more broadly. So again, we're able to show the so what, share the impact report. I guess she shared it with colleagues. So she walks into this office and the CHRO is there, and next to the CHRO is the CEO of this company. She's like, uh-oh, like I do something wrong. And they were talking about this impact report that literally made it from her to the head of talent acquisition, to whoever the director, to the CHRO. And they were talking about the metrics, and it wound up being, and they wanted to, first of all, say thank you. And secondly, they had a couple of follow-up questions because literally the CEO was talking about it in the annual report in the investor, because there's
Yeah,
real data there. Measurable
yeah,
data, not check the box, not vanity metrics, but real data that align to the
yeah,
corporate goals of that
yeah,
organization.
yeah,
So
yeah.
she thought it was pretty cool. I did
Yeah,
too.
absolutely. That's super cool. How often do graduate recruitment information gets talked about at that level, right?
But
Now,
back to the earlier comment, it's about focusing on the right metrics. So there's
mm,
metrics that matter to me as an early career program leader, where maybe again it's number of schools, maybe it's conversion rate, maybe it's cost, but then there's also getting the metrics that matter to other professionals in the organization that are more strategic. While I may be proud that my applicant volume increased X%, or we had sort of Y conversion rate, the CEO cares about something different. Let's make sure that we're capturing and sharing that data, that
yeah.
CEO or head of HR or head of talent acquisition, that matters to them.
Yeah. Now, I wanted to focus more on something that I find super valuable about micro internships, the sheer quantity of experiences that students can actually accumulate through their academic studies, through their years in college. You mentioned that Accenture graduate and that she had quite a number of these micro internships during their studies. I think one thing that institutions often forget is when the students graduate, yes, the knowledge that they've acquired is important and degree is important. But the old saying, right? It's not what you know, it's who you know. And if they're one of the lucky ones that may have got one internship, they may have one or two contacts in that company. But if they've gone through micro-internships and they've done 5, 10, 15, 20 of these things, they've actually got a network then. They've got, a couple of dozen people they can call that they know in the marketplace that potentially they can land a job with. That's, I think, often overlooked aspect of this kind of engagement where it's shorter, but there's much more of them.
I agree with you 100% and would actually add something on top of it. That one of the things we hear from universities is these micro internships become an incredible catalyst to engage with alumni. That as a university student, am I comfortable reaching out to David, who may have graduated from my school 1, 3, 5, 10 years ago? Maybe, maybe not. And if let's assume I am comfortable reaching out to David, what's our conversation really going to be like? Be about the basketball team, maybe the bars on campus, maybe it's tell me about a typical, there are these artificial stilted conversations, even in the best of circumstances.
Yeah.
However, if I'm working on one of these micro internships, I'm doing a market size analysis in the education space, and I know that David's an alum who graduated from my school 10 years ago. He's in a marketing role at McGraw-Hill. I can reach out to David, and instead of it being, hey, are you hiring or tell me about a day in the life, it's, hey, David, I'm doing this market size analysis tied to virtual charter schools. I know you work with this company and you're doing work. Can I pick your brain? Can I get your insights on my approach? Can I get some feedback on how I'm thinking about it? That now creates an authentic connection between me and David. And now, to your point, helps me build my network. And I can do that with multiple alumni. I can do it with other professionals. I can do it with faculty members. And it's an authentic, real conversation. But what it's also doing is it's helping David, the alum, feel more connected to the school. It's not, can you write the big check to the school or do you want to come to the football game? They actually feel engaged in a real, authentic way, which makes them want to give back, which makes them want to support more and more students. Again, it creates this positive cycle because the project itself is almost a catalyst. It's a catalyst for me to learn about a company, for me to engage an alum, engage a faculty member, use or leverage learning resources my program's providing. But it's also a catalyst for those post-secondary programs to get data about are students performing well? Are there areas where we can improve? Are there areas where Jeffrey needs help, but David's great? It's like being the fly on the wall in the interview where you can provide more customized coaching to the individual, but also understand programmatically.
Yeah. Amazing. And so activating alumni, engaging alumni, that's been something universities have been trying to figure out how to do for ages. And for the most part, a lot of universities just look at alumni as, fundraising sources, donation sources, right? But alumni have a lot of needs and wants that's beyond just, donating to the alma mater. To your point about having a catalyst, having some conversation topic that is specific, that's tangible, not just let's pair these students up with a alumni and they can have a mentoring session, but about what?
No, and it's not mutually exclusive. Again, one of the challenges is there's often this gap between when the student graduates and when they're actually in the position, to be blunt, to write the big check. How do you keep that alum engaged? How do you help them feel connected? You also, again, you see all these platforms coming out that are trying to connect alums and students. And again, in concept, great, but ultimately there's still that lack of catalyst for that authentic relationship beyond the, again, tell me about a typical day, or are you hiring? Can you make an intro?
And a lot of these alums, they may be also looking to hire. They might be hiring managers too. So by connecting alums at scale to a lot of students, you could inadvertently solve a pain point for them. They might be feeling the brunt of the skill shortage themselves as either a business owner or as an executive or as a project manager. And you're just solving their problem by connecting them with eager, able students who want to work.
100%. One other thing we're hearing a lot of is I graduated XYZ school. I'm in the workforce. Maybe I graduated 3, 4, 5 years ago. I'm not in HR. I'm not senior enough to drive where my company recruits. My company may not recruit actively for my alma mater. I may not be in a position to go visit my alma mater and present on campus or anything else, but gosh, I can give one of these micro internships to David from my alma mater. Yeah, it's great. I feel good. I'm giving back. I'm getting a project off my plate. David does a great job. Now all of a sudden it becomes a lot easier for me to say to whoever runs HR, hey, David just did this project for me. He is someone we should put into our recruiting pipeline. Look at this work product he did. So again,
Yeah.
there's all of these great opportunities that come, but it's not based upon David sent a resume and he went to my school. You should interview him, but here's a real work product.
Yeah, yeah, it's based on real tangible activities, real. Now, the other aspects of micro internships, at least the way that you've delivered, is these things are paid, right? It's not freebies, it's not people doing stuff because they have to. It's real work.
Yeah, I think that the pay is important for a few reasons. First of all, it's fair. To your point, someone's doing work for you that's valuable, they should be paid. Full stop. And to be clear, the data shows that even with the payments to the students, that cost per hire still winds up, again, 40, 50, 60, 80% lower than average. Second reason is around accessibility. There are a whole bunch of individuals that don't have the wherewithal to do simulations or make believe projects or unpaid work because they're being forced to. Again, I can't take the hours at the fast food restaurant or whatever I was doing to pay rent. I can't give those up for maybe the opportunity to maybe get interviewed by doing a 5, 10, 20-hour unpaid
Yeah,
simulation. The
yeah.
third reason is really, really practical for employers. Again, back to that win-win. That I,
Mhm.
as a student, if I am certain I want to work at David's company, I'm certain it's the right industry, the right role, the right everything. And I know by doing this 5-hour simulation, maybe my resume will be prioritized. Maybe you'll be more likely, do you know what? Yeah, maybe I'll do it, especially if I have the financial wherewithal to do it. But the reality is, most learners are interested in career exploration. And most of these unpaid simulations are more focused on driving engagement, including sort of access. So if I'm not sure I want to work at David's company or in David's industry, am I really going to commit 5, 10, 20 hours to do a simulation? Probably not, especially if it's not paid. In contrast, by paying the learners for these micro internships to complete these projects, one, they're fair. Two, they're accessible. Again, make sure that everyone can participate, not just rich kids. And third, it's driving the behavior you want. It's encouraging that exploration and encouraging that demonstration of skills so you can more effectively assess.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Now you mentioned it's very hard for the student to give up paid work at a retail or a hospitality outlet for a work experience, an unpaid one. Now, in Australia, we're undergoing a reform process of one of these really large, once in a generation ones in the higher education sector. And there was a universities accord, which recommendations were being adopted by the government, and it called out specifically this problem called placement poverty. I don't know whether you've heard of it in the US, but this term, it describes that challenge exactly, right? The situation where universities are increasingly incorporating work experience as a mandatory requirement in order to graduate, but a lot of the work experience is actually unpaid. And at the same time, cost of living and everything else, the students are working in paid jobs and they're asked to make a choice. Do I turn up to my shift that starts in, a couple of hours, or do I go to this mandatory work experience, which I have to do so I can graduate? And that's a choice you shouldn't have to make.
I would agree with you 100%. And the US has some strong laws preventing, or at least in theory, preventing unpaid internships. There's some interesting workarounds within traditional internships, but again, unpaid internships are illegal. However, there's something that, again, one of the college students a few years ago called the unpaid internship in disguise. And I was hitting on it before. It's these simulations, or sometimes they're even called virtual internships or virtual experiences that organizations offer, again, truly with the best intent. The goal is to make sure that students from schools they're not recruiting at have pathways in and to try to provide up. Again, it's all with the best intent. But at the
Mm,
end of the day, it winds up being like an unpaid internship.
mm,
Not as long as a traditional, again, 10 weeks. It might be 10 or 15 or 20 hours, but it's an unpaid internship. I am being asked to go and spend this time to sort of demonstrate my skills, but it's actually an unpaid internship, but worse
mm,
because at least with an unpaid internship, I'm building a relationship with the hiring manager. I'm getting
Mm,
feedback. I'm understanding what my skills are. With these
mm,
virtual experiences, I'm going through some training. I'm doing a simulation or a make believe assignment. Maybe I get to see that here's the best practice of what someone else turned in, but I'm not getting
mm,
feedback on my assignment. I'm not building a relationship with my manager or professional at the company. I'm not getting something I'm really going to put on my resume. Maybe I will as a simulation, but I don't know. Do people really put simulations on their, like, it's kind of, again, it's an unpaid internship in disguise, but even worse. So again, it's done with the best intent. It's done with the best. I want to make that clear. I didn't think about it this way until I started hearing this from the students when we were asking about it.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. These are unintended consequences. It's the people don't set out to do this kind of stuff, but that's reality. It's how it's actually panning out. And it's great that at least over here, the government's formally recognized that this is a challenge and they're doing something about it. They're putting in place initiatives, like the Commonwealth Paid Prac initiative. Still early days, but it's certainly heading in the right direction. And we're talking about things like degree apprenticeships, and hopefully we get to launch micro-internships in a big way here in Australia. This is definitely a movement worth adding fuel to and changing the mindset, changing the practices. Now, so I want to kind of wrapping up now, and this is something that I ask all my guests because I always like hearing stories about people's teachers and significant influences in their life, mentors, coaches, early managers, and so on. So I'd like to ask you, Jeff, who's a teacher that you really remember a lot, been really impactful in your life, that's led to you taking on this path, being an investor and now being an operator in a very innovative company?
I mean, there's a lot. Because you use the term mentor, I'm going to go away from the obvious of picking a teacher, though I do love my third grade teacher, Mrs. Help. I was fortunate in that my first job out of university, I had an incredible mentor. And one of the comments he made to me, if not the first day on the job, it was certainly early on, it's like, your job is to make my life easier. And it was this really direct statement. Took a pause. So looking at him, I'm like, wow, wasn't really expecting that for a welcome on board. Said, your job's to make my life easier, not so I can go home early, so I can make my boss's job easier. So he or she can make his. It's like, and what that means is if you go into everything with that approach, what that means is you're going to have opportunities to step up. You're going to have opportunities to take on more responsibility. I want you thinking about what's going to make life easier for Brian. And again, it wasn't meant in obnoxious, and he was very clear about it. It was just if you start having that mindset of what is your boss asking for? What do they really want? If you were in your boss's chair, what's his or her next 5 questions? Think about those ahead of time. And it's just this incredible mindset that I've used throughout my career and I continue to. Again, everything is about when we're talking with the university, what can make life easier for them or better? When we're talking with an employer, when we're talking with a student, it's again empathy, but in a very real, practical, tangible, tactical way. And I think it's just great. I think it was one of those lessons, obviously 30 years later, whatever it is still with me. And I think it's a great life lesson, not just professionally, but even personally when we're interacting with friends or others, like what can we do to make their life better? I don't mean it in a cheesy, trite, kumbaya way, but very practical. And what happens with that approach is beyond doing a better job, but it rapidly increases learning. Rapidly, rapidly, rapidly. And in the AI environment, as you alluded to, it increases the likelihood of your success. It decreases the likelihood that you can be replaced because you're no longer just processing or executing. You're spending the time to think and understand why and start to think about where this fits into the larger world.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Oh, amazing. Thank you for that. Can you talk to how micro internships help students build their confidence in a real employment setting?
Building confidence is something that's very, very top of mind. So after individuals complete micro internships, we ask them to provide feedback using the NACE core competencies on how the project impacted them. Because again, one of the questions we have is, does a 10 or 20 hour or 30-hour experience, like how much benefit does it really provide to the learner beyond, again, something to put on their resume or engaging with all of those things are very real, but we want to make sure it truly is impacting them.
Mm.
And we ask them to rate. And it's basically the scale is it sort of helped them dramatically improve. It helped them improve a little, not at all. But then the fourth category is I built my confidence. So it may not have helped me improve, but I got confidence in that area. And again, these are all according to the NACE core competencies, new hires. And it has shocked me. And we have this on the Parker Dewey website. You can pull the data. We constantly refresh it. It's massive numbers. I don't have the stats at the top of my head. I apologize. But like 90 something percent talk about the fact that they either developed their skills or built confidence in their skills. And that's really, really important, especially when we think about the imposter syndrome that impacts so many college students, the first generation college student, the non traditional, the adult learner, the veteran, all of these individuals. These bite sized experiences are key.
Yeah.
And it's not just that they built confidence or improved their skills in one area. And again, I'm going to screw up the numbers, but it was like 80% built confidence or improved skills in 7 out of 9 areas. And again, visit the Parker Dewey website. You can see all the stats at your fingertips, but it's real.
Yeah.
It's real. And again, I think that's a big reason why we see such high placement rates of individuals who complete projects where they're getting jobs is they develop their skills, but they also have the confidence and the language to communicate their skills when they're applying for that full-time role or that summer internship.
Yeah. And I think, the confidence building aspect, that would have a lot to do with the fact that they're actually engaging with real work, paid work, right? Not made up projects, but actually engaged in not just a higher number of paid work, but actually the work itself is paid. So when they actually do a job and they receive that paycheck and the feedback from the direct hiring manager, that and doing that repeatedly over several experiences, that's really, really powerful in building confidence. And you can't really replace that with anything else.
So because of my beautiful ADD and the fact for those of you watching may have seen me turn my head, I pulled up the data. The most recent data shows 96% of career launchers reported improvement in at least one career competency, 90% in 3 or more competencies, and across all 8 NACE career readiness competencies, 45% reported improvement in every one. That's just improvement. Then you add on top of it confidence. 99%, over 99% of career launchers reported either improvement or increased confidence in one or more competencies. I mean, this is incredible. And just to, again, give you an idea, communication, key attribute, sort of, I think it's like 96% either improved or built confidence, professionalism, critical thinking. These are the areas that these learners are either enhancing their skills or having more confidence in their skills in those areas. And it's not just the students saying that, because another stat that we didn't talk about is over 98% of the hiring managers, when they're leaving feedback on how these individuals did on the micro-internships, over 98% said they exceeded expectations. So it's not just the learner saying, gosh, I did a great job, pat themselves on the back.
Yeah.
The employers are agreeing.
Yeah. That's amazing numbers and impact. So the last segment of the show, it's a more of a fun one. It's called Plugs. So this is part of the show where, Jeffrey, if you can actually nominate a person, an initiative, a company, your own company, of course, that you'd like to just put a spotlight on.
I'm not going to spotlight my own company, though I am obviously a fan. I will plug, the first is a very, very good friend, actually a friend from college or from university. His name is Harlan Cohen. He wrote a book called The Naked Roommate. I was not the naked roommate, but it's all about having a great experience in college and getting the most out of it. So for those college sort of students or parents or others, if you Google Harlan Cohen, he has a book, he has a network about the first year experience and launching careers and all of these amazing resources. He's very active on social media. really talking about not just the career and academic, but really those life skills to be successful early in one's career. The second person I'll plug is one by the name of Jade Walters, who runs an organization called Ninth Semester. Jade is highly, highly focused on, again, helping career launchers sort of get going in their careers. Great advice around securing internships, securing that first job, getting very, very active on social media. There are two people who, again, you think about surrounding yourself with your kind of people. They are two I'd love to plug. I guess I'm going to do a third since you haven't stopped me yet.
Yeah, yeah.
This one obviously is biased, but all of the employers and all of the colleges and universities and workforce and boot camp programs who are active on Parker Dewey, I mean, they're incredible. They're the ones providing these opportunities to learners. They're the ones looking for innovative ways to support learners. They're the ones looking for innovative ways to hire more effectively and create these pathways. And I'm proud to be associated with them. Again, big companies that are at the top of mind for organizations. I mean, Microsoft, Orange Theory, Northrop Grumman, like they're great organizations, but ones we may not know as quickly. They're doing great stuff in colleges. Again, I think about programs ranging from community colleges to Swarthmore and Bucknell that are doing great things, to the University of California, Irvine, and other schools in that system, to Delaware, to Florida. And like they're always looking to get better, and they recognize sort of this win-win, this opportunity to create better outcomes for the learners, for employers, and for universities. And back to where we started the conversation. As an investor in education, I've realized that most places around education are zero sum. There's situations where interests are not aligned, where again, someone wins at the cost of someone else, or we want to provide students a great experience, but there's a pull from somewhere else around budget or otherwise. What I love about this little place we play in, this career launching, is everyone wins. Everyone's interests are aligned. Everyone wants these individuals to land great jobs and to be successful in those roles. It's in the best interest of the learner, of the educational institution, and of the employer. And again, that's why it's fun being in here and why I'm so proud of all of the amazing partners that we have.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jeff. And what a way to wrap up the show in the impact that you've done. This is definitely a win-win-win model. And we need to think about it that way. And thank you for all the universities and companies that's taking a new approach to solving this problem at scale. And thank you everyone for tuning in again for another episode of Relearning Work. If you haven't, like us and subscribe to us so you can actually receive updates and all the other episodes. I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you.